Hi, this is Mark Shelley at PTC here, and in this video I'm going to show you how to work with remote things in the ThingWorx Academic Simulator. In the different ThingWorx Edge SDKs, many of the concepts from ThingWorx Composer are present, such as things, properties, and services. And many of these concepts are exposed to ThingWorx Academic Simulator and can be used to explore how remote things are treated by the platform. The things, properties, and services that are defined in ThingWorx Academic Simulator compose a remote ThingWorx model that at times can be totally separate to the model that is present on the ThingWorx platform. These two things, the remote and the one in the platform, can then be bound together so that data is synced between them. The thing in the platform is commonly referred to as the virtual thing. For the purposes of this video, and to avoid any potential confusion, I will be referring to the model that can be seen in ThingWorx Composer as the platform model. In this example, I'm going to create and bind a remote thing, then create and bind a remote property, and finally create and execute a remote service. If you'd like to follow along with me, you'll need the ThingWorx Academic Simulator installed, a ThingWorx platform, and an application key on that platform. If some of these requirements don't make sense, I would recommend taking the Fundamentals of IoT Development course on iotu.com. So let's get started by connecting to our ThingWorx platform. If you have not done this before, I recommend watching my previous video, Your First Data Simulation with ThingWorx Academic Simulator. If you already have, your connection information should be saved and you should be able to quickly connect. Now, let's get started creating a remote thing. Click the plus button to add a thing. Now, when you select a thing from the platform in this section here, a remote thing with the same thing model as what is defined in ThingWorx Composer is automatically created. In this example, we're going to create a remote model from scratch, so I will be using Add New Remote Thing below. Type in a name for your remote thing and click Add New Thing. Then click Connect Things. We should now have a remote thing connected to our ThingWorx platform, so let's verify that in ThingWorx Composer. In the top right of ThingWorx Composer, click Monitoring, and then Remote Things, and then finally click on the Unbound tab. Here we see a listing of all unbound remote things. In this list, we notice the remote thing that I just created. Our next step will be to bind this to a thing on the platform. This can be done by matching either the identifier or the name of a thing with the remote thing. In my case, I am simply going to create a platform thing with the same name. Create a new thing, name it the same as a remote thing, and inherit from the remote thing template. Then click on Save. If I navigate to Properties, I will see that my thing is connected, meaning that the binding process was successful. I have now successfully created a remote thing and bound it to a thing in the platform. Remember that when you select a platform thing in ThingWorx Academic Simulator, a remote thing with the same name as the platform thing is created automatically. Next, we're going to create a remote property and then bind it to the property of our thing in ThingWorx Composer. Click plus next to Properties and give your remote property a name. Then give it a data type, and finally click Add New Property. We should now have a remote property that the ThingWorx platform can bind to. Let's verify this and bind our remote property to a new property in ThingWorx Composer. So switching back to Composer, on the Properties tab, click Manage Bindings, and click on the Remote tab. Here we see a listing of all of the properties that are available from ThingWorx Academic Simulator. I'm going to create a new property in the ThingWorx Composer that is bound to this remote property. Dragging this property to the Drag Here section will allow us to automatically create a new property of the same data type and name. Alternatively, we could drag the remote property to any other property in our thing to bind it to a different location. In our case, we can create a property that we will bind to at the same time. Then click Done, and finally click Save to finish our changes. So we just created a remote property. Then we use that property to create and bind to a new property in ThingWorx Composer. This process can be repeated for as many properties as is needed. Next, we will create a remote service and make it available from the ThingWorx Composer. Remote services are different from remote properties in that they are not bound to, but rather made available as if they were a built-in service. Additionally, unlike how remote services are used in the ThingWorx SDK, ThingWorx Academic Simulator does not give you the ability to execute custom logic within these services. So to create a remote service, simply click on the plus sign, give your service a name, and click on Add. As I mentioned, we can't define any custom logic for what this service will do, but ThingWorx Academic Simulator allows us to see when that service is executed. An example of when this may be used is if your application needs to be able to send a shutdown command to your device. This remote service will not perform the action of shutdown, but it can be treated as if it would in ThingWorx. Now let's execute this service in ThingWorx Composer to make sure it's working. So go to the Services tab, select Browse Remote Services, and if necessary, click on the refresh icon. Then click the arrow next to the remote service you just created, and finally, click Create Services. We've now added this remote service so that it is accessible from the ThingWorx Composer. This service can be used in other services and subscriptions using the syntax me.servicename, open parentheses, close parentheses. Alternatively, it can be tested using the test button. When the service has been executed successfully, there will be a return of true, and in ThingWorx Academic Simulator, you will see the event fired count increase by 1, and the last triggered changes to the current time. So in summary, we explored how to use ThingWorx Academic Simulator to mimic the remote thing model capabilities that are present in the ThingWorx Edge SDKs. These features can be extremely useful in developing an application in ThingWorx Composer that correctly interfaces with your devices.